This is the only advice you need with business success speaker, Matt Hyams.
Today we're talking about how to network with higher level executives, how to avoid ending up in an elevator covered in your own piss and blood, how not needing anyone or anything might be the best thing for you, and some other stuff.
All right, let's do this.
How do you network with higher status people? It's easy to talk to the guy next to you or the girl next to you or the woman. A lot of people don't like to be called girls anymore. In any case, it's easy to talk to the person next to you and say, hey, introduce me to someone. I'll introduce you to someone. But it's a lot harder to get that to that next level of executives and meet them. How do you even find them? They don't want to be found. They're not hanging around waiting for you to talk to them. They don't want to talk to people who aren't on their level. They don't want to talk to you. So how do you get into those rooms with the higher status people so you can get a shot at advancing your career and your status? The first thing is you've got to be comfortable riding up elevators to higher floors, because that's where the higher network executives exist, on those higher floors. People who don't network with higher status people often get off at the 5th floor or the 3rd floor or the 7th floor. They don't go above 10. So they're not comfortable riding to those higher floors. So the first thing is practice riding elevators up to like the 25th floor just to get that feel. I've seen people get meetings with higher status execs and the executive's assistant will say, okay, your meeting's at 1 p.m. and we're on the 26th floor. And they immediately start dry heaving or they just pass out from the pressure. For someone who's never risen to the 26th floor before, they're going to start to have heart palpitations. They're going to start breathing heavier. They're going to start sweating profusely from the air pressure. They're going to have panic attacks in the elevator. The door to the 26th floor opens, and they're on a heap on the floor. They're crying. There's blood everywhere. They're sweaty. They've got poop in their pants. They're covered in urine. It's not their own. And then who do you think is staring at them? Yep, it's those higher executives. And they're staring at them, and they're like, you're not ready for this yet. And they're right, because those people have never risen to that floor before. So you got to work your way up. If you've always gone to floor 4, then just day by day, go a floor, 5, 6, 7. And don't get out, for Christ's sakes. Someone says, hey, are you coming out? Just say, no, I'm not getting out. Don't worry. People are nosy. They're going to push. They might say, you're not getting out? What are you doing? Just wave them off. Say, get out of here, pal. I'm fine. I'm okay. And let the doors close. This elevator training is so important. Take it from me, because that person in that heap that I mentioned earlier, covered in urine and blood, that wasn't just a story. That was me. That wasn't some stranger. And that wasn't the last time that happened to me either. It happened to me a bunch more times, some of them willingly, some of them not willingly, because I was on a journey, a personal journey for a period of time to find out what I was interested in outside of the office. And it turned out that I like to do certain things. I like to be covered in my own fluids inside an elevator, but I needed to go through that process. That didn't help me grow my business, but I needed to know that process just for my own personal development. Personal development and professional development are so closely linked that you can't do one without the other. But anyway, getting back to the elevator, you want to get that practice going with that elevator training, 12, 13, 14. Don't go straight to 26, 35, or 44, God forbid. You go straight to 44, let me tell you, it's not going to end up well. You're going to be covered in your own piss or someone else's most likely. Take it from me. I've been there. Learn from my mistakes. Because what you may not know is a lot of those higher level executives will pee on you immediately if you're already covered in urine. So if the door's open, you're covered in pee, they're going to be like, great, I'll pee on you too. Higher level executives love to pee on people, and you don't want to make that you. You want to be peeing on someone else. You don't want to be the one peed on. So that's the first thing. Get that elevator training, because you're going to need that. And eventually you'll get to pee on other people. Also, practice elevator small talk etiquette, because you never know who's in the elevator with you. On those days that you're training to get to higher and higher floors, these are also perfect opportunities to practice networking within the elevator and possibly even get in with a higher level exec. You might have a higher level executive in the elevator with you and you don't even know it. So start saying things to make small talk and get comfortable. Something like, can you believe dogs these days? Is a great conversation starter. People are going to be like, tell me about it. And use tell me about it yourself for anything someone says to you. The phrase tell me about it releases oxytocin between two people, which bonds you forever. You hear someone say, God, woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, you should say immediately, tell me about it. But And this is very important. If you're in front of them in the elevator, closer to the door, don't turn your head all the way around. Just do a little shoulder turn, just so they can see a little bit of your profile. Say, tell me about it, and then turn back around. Because if you turn all the way around, they're going to be like, why do they need to turn all the way around? I don't need to look at them. So just do a little side turn and then say, tell me about it, and leave them thinking, I wonder what the other side of that person's face looks like. So those little phrases, tell me about it. Can you believe dogs these days? It's not just initiating them, it's also knowing what to say if one said to you. So tell me about it is a good one. Someone might say to you, can you believe what's happening in the news? So many bad things. And you can say, yeah, my first wife was a child molester. Now, that might seem out of the blue, but that's one that I used often, and it did get me to the 44th floor. It was taken from my own life, and it got me into many higher level meetings because it showed that I had good judgment because I wasn't with that woman anymore. I recognized that this wasn't marriage material. And we didn't have children, and which she was very upset about, and I was able to get out early. So you can use that phrase as well. My first wife was a child molester, but use things from your own life. It's going to help. Now, once you start getting accustomed to rising higher in the elevator, going to those higher floors, using those elevator phrases, and people are getting used to seeing you in the elevator and your comfort level's rising, this is a good time to start doing laps around these higher floor offices so people get accustomed to seeing your face off of the elevator as well. The best way to get access to these floors is just to ask the receptionist if you can use the bathroom. And then once you're past the front reception area, start walking around the hallways doing laps. Don't do too many laps at once. A lap. Then get back in the elevator. Do a different floor each day, 33, 34, 35, etc. What's going to happen is that people are going to start to recognize you as they're walking by you. They're not going to know who you are, but they'll start to get comfortable with your presence. Now, if someone does ask you one day who you are, you might be tempted to say something like, you know me, I'm the guy from the elevator. I can't believe dogs these days. I was married to a child molester. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't say, I'm the guy from the elevator. People are going to be like, we don't know you as the guy. And they'll make those finger air quote things. Because let's face it, there are a lot of people in the elevator. Just say, I'm looking for Susan. And they'll point you to her office because there's always a Susan. And Susans are typically very friendly. Though I have run into some angry Susans too, who will bite your goddamn head off if you look at them the wrong way. But generally, Susans are a safe bet. Also, people might think that you're lost. So they might say, hey, do you need someone? Can I help you find something? This is a golden opportunity. This is what you've been waiting for. This is where your training has been leading you. What you say in that scenario is, I don't need anyone or anything. Because higher level executives love hearing that. People always need things from them. So if you start to become known as someone who doesn't need anyone or anything, they'll start to trust you. Word will get out that there's a person roaming the hallways that doesn't need anyone or anything from anyone. And the higher level executives will think, this person doesn't need anything from me. I can talk to them. Okay, that's what you want to be. So word will get out. You'll be making those laps. And mark my words, eventually, one of those higher level executives, one of these days, will be like, let me ask you something. And then you're in. Okay, you want to be known as the person who doesn't need anyone or anything. Which, side note, doesn't work in your personal life because I started to do that everywhere and I was left with nothing. At the elevator, I was killing it. But in my personal life, sending the message that I didn't need anyone or anything left me without any intimacy. I was starved for affection, and consequently, I was always freezing physically beside my body. You could not cover me in enough blankets to keep me warm. I even had a pile of blankets that I was going to donate to refugees, but I had to use them all for myself because I was so emotionally frozen and empty. Truth be told, I'm still working my way back to life. So, yes, going home at night was an emotional nightmare that left me crying in the dark, covered in heavy blankets, feeling a despair only known by beggars and those abandoned by the world. But during the day, I was thriving in the workplace, and people were noticing me, and they will notice you too. Now, when you're ready to go the extra step, you're comfortable talking with higher level execs at this point, you're riding to those higher floors in an elevator, and you're not ending up in a heap covered in urine and blood, and you're ready to really start working the system. What you can then do, extracurricular, go to high-end men's and women's suit stores and hang out in the changing rooms. Now, don't be a pervert. This isn't a sexual thing. This is a business opportunity. If you're a man hanging out in the changing room area, you can start conversations with men in their underwear, which I found is the best time to create a business transaction. But I didn't limit myself to the men's changing rooms, though. I would also go to the women's stores. I would pretend to be someone's husband. Like, my wife's dragging me here again. What's that, honey? Or I would tell people in the women's waiting room, don't worry, I'm a pre-op trans woman. And I would have a little note from my therapist, which I forged. And I would try on women's suits. And they had to let me. And look, again, don't be a pervert. This is a business opportunity. This isn't sexual. Don't be a predator. This is just one way to rise to the top and meet these execs. But be careful, because I did this and I got hired. I had hit it off so well with this female executive in a Fortune 600 company. I learned a lot from her, and she hired me thinking I was a pre-op trans woman. And then I had to go through with the operation if I wanted to get that job, which I did because it was a dream opportunity. And I had to become a woman, and I did. And I worked there for a couple of years as a trans woman. And when I left that company, I retransitioned back to my former sex. And unfortunately, my parts never quite worked the same again. I now have an unworkable vagina because of that job, and I'm still waiting on a transplant. So while I can't experience sexual pleasure, I am enjoying job satisfaction because of these tips. And if you're a woman, you can do the same thing. All right, that's it. I'll see you next week.